Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. Hopefully by the time you do see this, my previous video on mouse should be out. My videos tend to be pushed back regardless as to when I would prefer to put them out. It takes me a while to record due to various chronic illnesses, but also because of aforementioned chronic illnesses, it also takes me a while to edit, which I have to do fairly extensively because there's a lot of brain fog that you guys don't get to see. So imagine how bad it is before editing, considering how discombobulated I can be with what I leave over. But anyway, so it can take me a while to put out one of these videos. If you wonder why some of the videos don't seem topical for the period, like why I might have a video for last quarter coming out now in Historathon 2024. But regardless, hopefully by the end of the week, it's currently January 3rd, so hopefully by the end of the week you will have the last video for Historathon 2023 coming out. So we'll see. But let's just go ahead and jump into this video. I have several that I will be recording today, but the one I want to start off with will hopefully be the shortest of the videos, which is why I'm choosing to do it first. Sorry, water. But I'm just going to go ahead and start with the video. This one will be a historically crafting one. And I think my second to last video was the one prior to mouse. So first I want to start off by talking about, I think, the one that I finished first. So this might seem like an odd choice for historically crafting, but I do believe that it fits in here. I actually picked this up toward the end of last year, so I want to say either the week of Christmas or the week before. I picked up the Kindle version for my dad, who is an artist. But what I had picked up for him was this book, Don Bluth, Somewhere Out There, My Animated Life. So I had picked up the Kindle version for him. I didn't want to spend the same price for a Kindle version for myself, so I found a less expensive version physically. I think I got this off of eBay. Don't remember what I paid for it. I just know it was significantly less expensive than the Kindle version. It wasn't available via either the library apps, which kind of annoyed me because that's how I intended to read it. But I put this in this section because this goes over, yes, it goes over Don Bluth's life, but the focus, he puts his life into context of his love of animation, and then it does get into his part in animation history. Goes through his time with Disney, the people that he worked with, some of the movies that he was involved with at Disney. So that would be, I think he said his first job was with working on Robin Hood, the animated Robin Hood with the foxes and the foxes as Mariana and Robin Hood. That one that I think many of us, at least of a certain age, many of us grew up with that version of Robin Hood. Sorry, I have the music at the beginning in my head. But so it covers that, and then his last thing they worked on was Fox and the Hound before he moved on to start Don Bluth Studios. But it goes into why he made that decision, what creative aspects made him take that leap. It is because for him, his faith as a member of the LDS Church is very important to him. This is woven in and out of his narrative because that did influence some of the decisions that he made that ended up affecting directions that his career went. So if that makes you feel uncomfortable, that might not be the book for you, but I still recommend this book. I enjoyed hearing just different aspects of animation history at that time, how Disney reacted to suddenly having some competition, whereas previously they had really been the only studio out there doing animated movies, and how they took it actually very personally that Don Bluth and his crew moved on from Disney to create their own entity. And a lot of the movies, especially quite a few of the movies that he mentioned in here were some of my favorites growing up as a kid. I loved Anastasia. I loved American Tail, although Five Goes West was my favorite one of the two, and I didn't realize that Don Bluth did not actually work on that one, that his financial backers weren't willing to put up the money necessary for them, what he felt necessary to make a sequel. So his company did not end up getting to make Five Goes West. Then Land Before Time, I grew up with Land Before Time as well. All Dogs Go to Heaven. Of course, Secret of Nim. He also did some work before he left Disney on The Rescuers. I don't think he got to work on Rescuers Down Under. But all of these were movies that I grew up with. But, I always forget about The Troll in Central Park. I remember watching it, but I think I only watched it once because it wasn't one of my favorites. Something that I found interesting in here, and I did hear it just prior to reading this book, that is it called Chanticleer? I think it might be called Chanticleer. Hold on. It's called Rockadoodle. I was surprised because Rockadoodle was a favorite of my family's. I was surprised to find that it actually didn't do very well and was considered to be the beginning of the end for Don Bluth Studios. I think it has a bit of a cult following now, but it was one of my family's favorites when my sister and I were growing up. A lot of my favorite animated movies growing up, yes, I watched the Disney ones, but there was a period of time where it seemed like I was watching a majority Don Bluth, and he put out, they put out good stuff. It was some decent movies. They challenged Disney to push past just getting by, because Disney didn't have to try necessarily very hard creatively. After Walt died, they just kind of were coasting because there was no competition. Then Don Bluth Studios came along, and suddenly they had competition. And it wasn't something they were very happy about having at the time. But I know I had something else to say about some of the Don Bluth movies. I can't remember what the other one that I was going to talk about was, but yes, really very much enjoyed this book. I enjoyed just everything about learning about his journey, everything learning about animation history. Really just fun book. I read it within a week, so it's a very quick read. His style is very engaging. I don't know if he got someone to co-write it with it or if this is completely him, but the way he has it broken up is each chapter has little sections. So like, okay, this chapter, The Awakening, he has the first part, which is which isn't separated by anything. It's just, the first part. And then he has another section about halfway through the chapter, and it's a short chapter, and it's learning to draw. So I could split that chapter into, I could read the first part when I was sitting wherever, and then I could pick up the second part later, which made it a very nice, I'm just going to be able to read maybe a little section here. Okay, I'll grab my somewhere out there, and I will take that with me. And this one is another one. This is a longer chapter, but he has more sections in it. So this is from Life on the Farm, which is actually quite a long chapter. But he has the first part, then he has a little box that says weasel words. Then another box that says promises. Section that says flash. And he has several, like, there's several points where you could break off and be like, okay, I can only get a snippet in. So very nicely set up for someone who doesn't have a lot of time to read, but still wants to learn about the history of animation. And the animation history and his talking about that is what made me put this in the historically crafting, because animation history, it did kind of, he was a part of changing how the movie industry looks today. Because before he came along, there wasn't any competition for Disney in the animation area. You just had Disney. Just like Disney, if I was to read something about Walt Disney starting off with Snow White and all that journey that led up to that, that would be in this section, because that is a definite historic part of cinema history in the animation area. And this is another pivotal time in animation history, when hand-drawn animation was sort of floundering, and Don Bluth Studios were like, okay, no, we need to bring this back, and we're going to provide some competition for Disney. And that's what launched Disney into Disney Renaissance, which is a lot of what everyone in my age group and younger, not too much younger, but I think even my age group, maybe their kids, these are the movies that we grew up with. Things like first of all, Little Mermaid, and then you have Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, the Renaissance. That came as a result of Disney having competition with Don Bluth Studios. They had to up their game because they weren't the only people in the game anymore. So, very important part of movie history, of animation history. Other things that I have read in the historically crafting area. I haven't done as much of this time around, and it's not really the right time period for Historathon 2024, because we're in quarter 1, which is prehistory to 500 AD, I believe. And this is actually more appropriate for next quarter, so I might hold off and wait to continue this until next quarter. Next quarter is 500 AD to 1500 AD. And this is the Bible illuminated, how art brought the Bible to an illiterate world. So this will be more appropriate for that time period. And I showed you pictures from this last time. I'm sorry, the expression on, is that supposed to be Jesus? Yes. On Jesus for the Stavolt Bible. I mean, that's just kind of an awkward facial expression. I do love, although that was just the illuminated tea that this particular author did. Sometimes some of the facial expressions can be interesting, particularly earlier on in the illuminated manuscripts when the styles were different. But yeah, I will probably hold off on reading this more until next quarter. And I did have someone who watched my last historically crafting video who mentioned that the Museum of the Bible books is not just a publishing company. Apparently in DC, in the United States, if for some reason I actually have people who are watching out of country, I don't think that I do, but if I do, in DC, in the United States, there is actually apparently a Museum of the Bible. So that's cool to know. The other one, I just started reading this, and part of why I started reading this is, I didn't bring the other thing with me that I'm about to refer to, but when my dad was off of work due to Christmas, and he was off from a little bit before Christmas until after New Year's. So during that time period, he did what he was saying he would do for a while, which is he found his old calligraphy kit for me. And it's a big old wooden box, heavy wooden box, that has all the calligraphy stuff that he used to use when he was in the Air Force. He used it before I was born, honestly. It was sometime in the, I guess it would have been actually the early 80s, because I think it might have been before my sister was born too. But regardless, sometime in the 80s, he was doing calligraphy for, I guess it was graduation things, some for important documents, because they just asked if someone wanted to do it, and he offered to do it. So I have that old calligraphy kit. I don't think he used it after I was born, so it's been sitting in this wooden box for years, decades. So he found his old box and he gave it to me because I've started to have an interest in calligraphy. And he has the fountain pens and the ones where I guess it'd be actually a dip pen as well, with all the different nib sizes. And he still had an ink bottle that was tightly enough closed that the ink was still wet. So I'm actually using ink for my calligraphy that's older than I am, which is kind of cool. So I have my felt calligraphy pens, like the marker type. Those are the ones I use if I'm concerned about a lot of bleed through, because I have noticed with certain papers, like if I try to do some more detailed calligraphy on something like an index card, it bleeds right through. I can't get any fine detail. So I have the felt pens, I have the fountain pens, and then I have what I consider the true calligraphy pens, which is the dip ones. So what that has to do with what I'm reading is I started deciding to read my source book for scribes. This one does have history, but the reason I started this one versus one of my other calligraphy books is this one also has a little bit more detail on the how-to of it. It has a few scripts in here. So I'm in the section still where it's talking about how people would make certain tools, and then it also talks a bit about the tools that we use today. I think I'm in the part where they're talking about, I just finished some of the stuff on parchment, vellum, and paper. I'm partway through that. They're talking about how they're making the different papers. And I'm assuming they're going to talk about paper after that. So the different writing surfaces. So I'm going to guess that besides talking about preparation, they're probably going to talk about how different ways they would take up the ink, is my guess. So then I have a few more pages of going over the equipment. And then it's going to go over analyzing scripts, and it's going to give me examples and show me how to do some of it, because I've actually gone through and used a couple of these scripts for thank you notes. So yeah, this is a nice mixture of history and practical. So you will see me reading this throughout the year, regardless as to the point I'm at in the quarter for the Historathon. And now I'm going to end this video with just a few of this book haul that you're going to see at the end of each of these videos that I'm recording. I'm trying to make them fit in with the video I'm recording, so you might see books that I got a long time ago but I decided not to show because they didn't fit in with the video that I was making. I think I'm just going to do things that way so I can keep things topical and don't have to do just a bunch of book haul videos. So this falls more into the fabric arts for historically crafting, and this is The Pocket by Barbara Berman, and Ariane Finito? Anyway, A Hidden History of Women's Lives. So what I found was interesting, and I am going to read the back just so I can give a better idea of what's about, because it's been a while since I picked this up, and I can't explain it very well without reading the back because it's been such a while since I thought about it. Pencils, a sketchbook, cake, yards of stolen ribbon, thimbles, money, keys, snuff boxes, a picture of a lover, 2 live ducks. Women and girls carried a startling array of things in their capacious tie-on pockets, a commonplace accessory of dress throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. But tie-on pockets were far from trivial or marginal things. Worn under the skirt by duchesses and country gentry, prostitutes and washerwomen alike, in practice they enabled women to negotiate their relationship to consumption, work, possessions, mobility, and privacy. Used as a lens to explore the complexities of women's lives, tie-on pockets reveal unsuspected facets of the past, bringing women's stories into intimate focus. Focusing on the years 1616 to 1900, so this would be a third quarter read. This richly illustrated book combines extensive new study of surviving pockets in museums with evidence from letters, diaries, criminal trials, inventories, novels, advertisements, paintings, and satirical prints to tell for the first time the surprising story of these deeply evocative and personal objects. So I look forward to maybe reading this coming third quarter of Historathon, but we'll see. I found the concept interesting, and it definitely fits in with the historically crafting section. Whoopsie. With my historically crafting genre section, whatever. I can't word right now. Okay, this next, and I've done this a couple times, where I found journaling ephemera that I like, and I'm like, I can get a book on that. And I do. I also ended up picking up books on this for my dad. Not necessarily the same books. One of these is the same one I picked up for my dad, but the other one I got him a different one as well. But I found a bunch of Mary Cassatt ephemera I liked for the journaling, and I was like, oh, I should pick up a book on her. And then I remembered my dad absolutely loves Mary Cassatt's paintings. So I picked up 2 of the books for him. The one I have here, and then a different one. And I have one here that he doesn't have, because it's not as heavy on the paintings. But he absolutely loves her paintings, and actually he kept flipping through it after we opened gifts, so I know that he really did like it. So Mary Cassatt is an American painter. I believe, though, she was an expat. I want to say she went and moved to France. And I think this might have been a book that they put out when she had a showing at a museum at some point. I don't remember when. This is put out by the Art Institute of Chicago in association with Harry N. Abrams Inc. publishers. And she was 1844 to 1926. So this would be, again, third quarter. She is mostly known, or best known, for her paintings of women with children. But here's one of her paintings. I think that's oil, but my dad would know better than me. So this is going to go through her life. I'm trying to find one of her, something that looks, that I would consider like typical Mary Cassatt. I had to go a little farther than this one, I think, because the other one I gave him had all of her ones with mothers and children. Now, actually, these are some of hers with not in her typical, what I think of as a typical, but these are absolutely beautiful. This is not what I think of as her typical, but those are bullfight themed ones. I want to find one of what's considered one of her typical. Although I do like this one here, with the young woman with the fan. I ended up giving my dad the other one because this one had a bit of a bend in the page. Okay, here's even though it's not a mother and a child specifically, here's a couple with little girls. And actually, you could see an adjustment in her style where sometimes she would experiment with style, because some of these are not as detailed as I'm used to her being. Like you saw the painterly ones. Here are these that are a little bit almost cartoony. Now going back to her normal style. Okay, so I'm going to show you two that have, in some ways they have a similarity in some of the figures, but they're very different styles. So the first one, which will be on more to this side, and will be more of the cartoony style, and the one more to this side is what I would consider more of a painterly style. So this one here is like a different view of this one here. So you can see the lady in pink holding her baby, but if you look at the more cartoony one, the bottom figure is a pink lady in pink holding a baby, just from a slightly different point of view. So I thought that was interesting. But this right here, this lady with the baby, that is a lot of times what I think of as most typical of Mary Cassatt's work. And the book that I gave my dad had a lot of those. I'm going to end with showing these two, which is very much what I think of for Mary Cassatt. So I do look forward to looking through this. There's a lot of text in here as well as the painting. It's not just a picture book. And then to end this video, I've got what appears to be, yes, you have some of the art of Mary Cassatt in here, but this appears to be almost more of a biography, which is what I wanted. So this will give more details on her life. Yes, her painting information will be in here because that's a huge part of her life, but I'm hoping to get more of a view of the woman herself in this. So this is what I'll end the video for this historically crafting with. So thank you very much for joining me for this historically crafting finished book, TBR, and current reads. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you for the next video. God bless. Bye.